What's up, guys? It's Drac, and it's time for the battle of the Revolvers, which is, I think, a huge missed opportunity from both brands, but we've got one Dart Zone, one Hasbro, one Roundhouse, one Apex, and it's time to talk about at the different price points that they may be. They're both effectively doing the same thing, which is these are both rival revolvers, and they hit the market at right around the same time, and it's time to finally determine which one of them is a better buy. Let's take them outside, let's fire them a few times, let's do this one old school style. Let's go!
I know a bunch of you guys really dig these versus videos, so I'm happy to keep cranking them out. In the eternal battle that seems to be spooling up and up and up and up, we have the battle of the Revolvers, which is to say, what is better? What's a better bang for your buck in this case? Because I think this one is unusual. Normally, the Dart Zone Blaster is just better than the Hasbro Blaster, but this time I think that Hasbro has them beat. However, Hasbro has them beat, charging a ton more money. In this case. So we have the Apex, a 5-shot actual revolver in that, you know, it revolves. There's a cylinder that revolves. If that's important to you, then you should probably be on this wavelength. But 5 separate barrels to fire rival rounds out of, or orb rounds, or whatever you want to call them, high impact rounds or their equivalent. And then being slightly less of a revolver, you have the Roundhouse, which is a throwback to the Maverick that delivers some seriously cool, chunky rival performance. And I really dig this blaster. I like that it's coming in at Team Red. I like that it's got a lot of like Artemis sort of throwbacks with the built-in magazines. I think that this tech is really cool. And I mean, I like the aesthetic of it. I've always liked big chunky revolvers. It definitely gives me some Hellboy vibes. So I want to talk about the two of them. I want to put them both over the chronograph at the same time under the exact same conditions. And I want to talk about things like capacity, size, and price. So this one's going to be pretty interesting, but let's put a full salvo of 5 rounds over the chronograph each time. So what's the Apex doing with some very real world kind of used do-re-mi sort of rounds? Well, 87, 85, 86, 84, 79. So I think by and large, that's mid to high 80s with one outlier, but not bad at all. I do want to point out that this is nice in that it auto retracts. However, it leaves this behind, which is not nice. So like that's your first kind of indicator is this one you pull back and it's nice because you can rip it and fire. Whereas on the Roundhouse, you have to rip it and then make sure that you put it all the way forward. And a lot of the jams that come from this one, I have yet to jam my Apex. I've jammed my Roundhouse like a dozen times, and I've had a lot of other people jam it, will come from either a half prime or like a not fully seated return there. So again, this is more like the Maverick in that you rip it and let it go. This one is more like the Maverick in that when you've actually fully loaded and chambered it, there's nothing sticking off the back end. But let's put 5 shots over. 95, 88, 87, 90, 88. So that's, I think that one's pretty easy to say that it averages out at right around 90, maybe mid to low 90s, with a couple dipping down below 80. So as far as the priming action goes, this is a much softer prime than this. This is actually somewhat stiff. You kind of have to grip it up forward, and then it's 2 actions back and forth to get this one all the way primed. In terms of like, I guess, overall comfort in shooting, the safety on the Roundhouse makes way more sense to me. Both safeties are ambi, this one being here and here. Down is safe, up is fire. This is a grip safety, very firearms-esque, kind of real steel in that regard, but it looks like a rev trigger, which is a little confusing for me and my my Nerfy brain. This will not fire unless you're gripping it all the way. Now, both of these need to have a safety per some regulations in the toy industry and safety regarding what a teen toy blaster and how much stored energy in terms of like joules delivered to target they can have, rival rounds being a little bit more impactful than your average 50 cal Nerf dart. But I like that they both hit relatively high FPSs. I like that they both deliver balls down range in a really fun fashion. I think it's hard to go wrong with either one of these. There's something very Wild West about grabbing an oversized revolver and taking it down range. Now, speaking of Wild West, both of these blasters would be difficult to holster just because of how chunky they are, but you can see pretty clearly that the roundhouse is about 50% wider, as well as a lot longer. Now, that said, it gets more performance, and I think that it is overall the more handsome blaster. I like this transparent chambering. Both kind of have an indicator of whether or not there's ammo inside because of their transparencies, but overall, like, this is a lot of onboard capacity. And while you can always double load your Apex if you are so inclined, I wonder if you can triple load it. I've never tried, actually. Let's do that now. So if you triple load this, you could, in theory, get 15 rounds of capacity out of it as well, but your performance is going to be pretty garbage. I think that the 2-round bursts, well, you know, not too terribly much better. However, 15 rounds of onboard capacity means that for certain game types, you could load this thing up completely and not have to touch the loading mechanism again for the rest of the match. Now, this is easier to service, being a more traditional revolver-style blaster. This one has advantages in servicing in that you can kind of access some of your parts through here. Also, I just think that that's kind of a cool aesthetic. Now, the only other thing worth mentioning is that Hasbro did cheap out on the paint, particularly on the roundhouse, and that there's only this. There's no striping anywhere on it, which does make it look a little bit plain, but far be it from me to ever judge something that came stock in my Halloween color scheme that's red, black, and orange. Whereas, of course, at $10, Dart Zone has no paint on this blaster, but instead opts for removable panels and a very detailed, very nicely decorated in terms of its shell molding kind of design. Now, that said, $25, $10, which one is better? I think that depends completely on your budget. This is an interesting case where I would say that if all else was equal and price was not a factor, I think that it's the roundhouse 10 out of 10 times. While nobody respects what Hasbro is doing in the ultra space, I think that everybody is still looking to rival to be kind of the market leader. However, I'm super duper stoked that companies like Zuru and companies like Dart Zone are innovating at a particularly more affordable price point, because I think that's just absolutely amazing for consumers. I love that we have access to blasters that are cheap and perform just as well, if not better in some cases, although I do not believe this to be one of those cases. I think that this is great. I love the noise that it makes when it fires, and I'm really looking forward to putting both of these blasters under the knife. And so I can't give you a recommendation. I can tell you that you can purchase either one of them through the link down in the description box below. The roundhouse is finally available for pre-order on Amazon in the United States. So if you pre-order through that link, it means an absolute ton to me, because I get a small kickback, which will help me in the ever-increasing war to purchase enough Ultra darts to continue making videos for you about Ultra. And I think this one's available realistically at like Dollar General right now, and it might be coming to the internet soon. Who knows? But the comment that I need down below is not a survey of which one you think is better, but which one you would like me to modify first. What would be more meaningful to you guys, my audience? Should we modify the thing that everybody can afford, or should we modify the absolute top end of the Revolver space right now? Which do you think would be more compelling to get up in the live stream and turn into an edited down mod guide for you guys? And then I guess that kind of goes to say, which one do you think is more exciting? Which one are you more excited for? I can tell you right now that back in HVZ days, I would have been super stoked for either one of these to exist, and I think that they serve a really cool kind of like scout class loadout. No matter what you choose, I think that you're not going too terribly wrong. But I probably would have leaned towards the roundhouse, although I guess my final note is that people with smaller hands might not like the roundhouse. It's a lot of plastic to put in one hand, whereas the Apex, I think, is not necessarily cute, but certainly more bite-sized in that regard. So that is my take. I really like doing these videos, old school POV, sitting on the step style. I know that there's a huge portion of my audience that resonates with them really well. Normally, I like to try and give you guys a definitive answer, and if I had to, it would be the roundhouse, but I think that they both serve a very special place I'll sign off with that. Much love. Nerf on. Drac out.